primary suspensions are going up.
Fair enough. JP?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think secondaries have had more experience of this. I would say there's a massive underreporting in secondary, and a lot more pressure in many ways, because the behaviour gets more dangerous, doesn't it? And we've seen, really dangerous behaviours. And it's not to say that some of the behaviours coming into primary school aren't dangerous, but secondary schools, I believe, are bottling it. And I've seen numerous occasions as a union rep where I can say that the pushback from parents has got so vociferous. The pushback from lobbyists who say my child's needs aren't being met, and parent power is so strong that sometimes, head teachers, governors, etc., are under a huge amount of pressure not to exclude, because you've got some tiger parents who are well full of their rights and entitlements, and I get that, and they've fought a system that's not really set up for them. But they are putting the needs of one child, to use the old vernacular, Star Trek, the needs of one outweigh the needs of the many. No, we as schools try and do our best for every child, but I have to ask the question how accurate that actual data is, much like Carl is saying, because I think there's a massive underreporting, and that has been evidenced, the massive underreporting. I think for every single suspension that there's probably 2 or 3 others that could have been suspended. For every single exclusion, there's probably 5 or 6 others that could have been excluded. And then, of course, there's the amounts that goes to appeal. So I think there's a huge underreporting, and I think that's evidenced by the unions. If anybody's saying where's the evidence for that, it's evidenced by the 9% of staff leaving every year. It's evidenced just on the ground for most of us who've worked in education. It's my 3rd decade now working in education, and there's a definite change. A change where as staff, we don't feel protected. Regularly, we are abused by both parents, society now, the newspapers, every media. And when we dare turn around and say, like Section 48, I have the right to go into a safe workplace, and my colleagues have the right to a safe workplace, we're constantly told, but we're the adult, as if we're kind of signed up for this. We didn't sign up to be regularly abused or have our health and safety compromised. However, that has to be balanced with meeting the needs of children. Now, as somebody who's come and understand his own neurodiversity, how did I get through the education system? And I'll be very clear on this. I got through the education system because the education system was a lot more rigid when I was a child. And I'm not saying it was healthy. Caning a child 8 years old for things that they could not help is probably now cruel. However, there were other aspects of the education system, a consistency. I had parents that sent me to bed at 9 o'clock at night. There used to be a watershed. Remember the watershed? Where's that gone? So I have to ask the question about environmental factors. Where is all of this behaviour coming from? The behaviour is coming from a lack of consistency, social media. Our children are now completely wired differently. And it's not as if the brain physiology has changed for mankind in the last 40, 50 years, has it? But what has changed is environmental factors, lifestyle factors, a lack of consistency when it comes to guidelines with parents. And when it comes to society as well, we've had that from top to bottom. There was no parties in Downing Street, according to the Prime Minister 14 times. Every institution of authority has seemed to fail. And yet we're the one institution still trying to uphold some sort of standards and rules. It's like we're the guys on the one side of the island of Lord of the Flies going, look, there are rules on our side of the island, but on the other side, anything goes. And the kids come from one side of the island over to our side of the island and they can't adjust. And it's as simple as that. And either we just say, forget about it, and there's no point in having any rules and it's a free-for-all, or we actually have to push back and say, I'm really sorry, there has to be red lines. And as tragic as these exclusions are, it's not the fault of the education establishment. We see children, 190 days a year for 5 or 6 hours a day. And as a teacher, I might see a child 1 to 2 hours a week. And you really think I have that much impact on their behaviour? I'd say catch yourself on. So for me, there's a real hidden issue, because if they're saying that these young people coming from primary go up to secondary school, as a secondary school teacher, I'm quite fearful of those, because as they work through the system, child excluded in primary school for me should be a red flag, because how far are they going to get through the education system if already they are at that stage? And what is there in place to help that young person? Because they're just going to be institutionally failed, and we can already see what happens. That's a national efficiency problem, because if they're going to fail in education, you can blame the education system. Then we're going to have to fix that. That's going to cost huge amounts of taxpayers' money. The prison system, the pipeline is there, but also mental health. So it's in nobody's interests whatsoever. And I know some parents who are probably going to condemn me now and have a go at parent bashing. Look, I'm a teacher and a parent myself, and I'm sick and tired of those parents out there criticizing teachers. I'm a parent myself, first and foremost, and a teacher. So I get it. But I also know I have to take some responsibility for my own child's actions. And when I was suspended from school back in the day, and I was wrong, my parents were dragged in, my father lost a day's work, and they made it explicitly clear to me, don't you do that again. Don't you bring shame on this family. Don't you dare do that. And that's because my parents had a sense of standards, a sense of pride, a sense of if a child's suspended now, it's almost like me. Whereas previous generations, your child was suspended, that was, how dare you? There's no pride any longer in that sense. So I think the measurement has lost its, what's the word for it? It's lost its kind of potency, so to speak, because it's no longer
I don't think there's a meh reaction when children are excluded. I think there's a how dare you at the school. I think that is more often than not the reaction. And it's changed. I mean, anyone, and this is why I just roll my eyes whenever we get accused of parent blaming. All we're doing is pointing out our lived experiences. You're pointing out yours, we're pointing out ours. We've been teaching for X amount of years. We've noticed trends, we've noticed patterns, we've noticed behavior get worse. We've noticed things becoming more and more problematic. Humans don't evolve that quickly. Schools have not changed as much as the behavior has. It's got to be the circumstances in which these kids are being raised. It's not, and as a secondary teacher, I'm not going to turn around and say it's the primary schools, because then I'd be doing the same thing that society is doing to us. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to assume they clearly are experiencing the same problems. So it's 0 to 5. It's 99% of the time it is 0 to 5, and we ain't there for 0 to 5. So it's somebody else. Andrew, do you want to give us your 2 cents here?
Yeah, I tend not to put much weight in spring statistics. They vary a lot year from year. You have to really wait for the end of the year. And even then, when we're talking about spring statistics, we're talking about over a year ago. So it's tempting to look at those statistics based on a third of the year and just jump to a conclusion about a trend. And a lot of what we've commented on so far about what's in the spring data, the exact opposite happened in the autumn term data. Most of those statistics were down, and in fact even the ones that are roughly the same this time. And then if you split it into primary and secondary and look for differences in what's only a third of the year, you have huge variations all the time. Exclusion rates in primary can change by 20% from year to year with no real underlying trend, just random noise. So I'm not putting any weight at all in what's just come out. Oh, and then there's the fact that Easter moves. So it's not even comparing like with like. So really you need the annual statistics, and the annual statistics are not really out yet. The most recent ones take us to the end of 24, and that was a high point. However, I don't think we can expect that trend to continue, just because we'd have to really catch up in the summer to get to those levels again. And within that, I think there was some very unique changes in what happened. There was an absolute collapse in permanent exclusion rates after the pandemic. In fact, it continued in the second year of the pandemic, even though suspensions rose. And there was a lot of talk at the time that because of the lockdowns, kids were going to come back out of control. Actually, lockdown school behaviour, measured in suspensions and exclusions, seems to have been better, much better, or at the very least, there was far less need to permanently exclude or permanently exclude in that period. Then it gradually rose up, and it peaked. As I say, I think it's a peak, 23 to 24, but it was only then that it went above pre-pandemic levels. So when people say it's a record, it is, but it's like 1 year of breaking the record after a recovery period. And what's notable within that data is that, yes, there's a bit of a primary and secondary difference. But in particular, there's a year group difference. So the vast majority of permanent exclusions are in secondary, and we would expect that usually to be concentrated on year 9, year 10. Yet the previous year, it was key stage 3. It was 7 to 9 that were breaking all records, higher than they had been before the pandemic. And 11 was actually quite way down, and 10 wasn't much changed. Now 10's now ticked up as well, and primary is now ticked up as well. But you can still see a pattern within the years. And if you try and think of, what events in school are making this happen, it's a lot harder to just think, oh yeah, schools are doing this, parents are doing this, because it's not every year group, it's not every sector. And you end up thinking really like, what has made particular year groups different and others not? And all the explanations anyone can come up with tend to focus on the pandemic and the effect of lockdowns. So you hear a lot of very, very young children in primary being suspended and excluded in a way they weren't before. And you think because of when the figures go up to, and then you count back, these are children who at their very, were at their very youngest during lockdown. Has that had a psychological effect when they start school? And then with the secondary rises, it's all pupils that had their primary school interrupted by lockdown. And again, is that a factor? Does that have an effect? And of course, I could be, we could be completely wrong. We could come up with a story and it fit the data, but not actually be true. But it's very hard to think of any explanation for the differential effects on different years that doesn't take account of lockdown, because that's a thing that hit different kids at different times.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause, sorry, before we come to you, Matt. There's just been a couple of comments that I think are worth sharing. So again, we've got Belana. Don't know. Parents are always criticizing teachers, but they don't look at themselves in the mirror. That's one way to put it. Their behavior as parents reflects on their kids' behavior. We could spend 3 hours, but I think we all agree that that's true.
Hold on. Yes and no.
Yes. Sorry, Belana. Let's give you more time.
No,
right. Go on, JP.
No. There are times when you sit down with a parent and they've done everything right, and the child is just an absolute demon, and you look at that parent straight in the face and you go, it's not Hugh. So there are times, and you get that with siblings. So just a caveat, you get that with siblings. Sometimes you come from the same household, you've come from the same socioeconomic background.
But siblings, you never have the same parents. You never have the same parents as your sibling. You get different experiences, different parenting experiences.
Yeah, you can get that. I mean, yeah, well, but you can get that, and you can get natural variations. But it can be that sometimes you can even have the opposite. I've had children who have come from horrendous backgrounds, absolutely horrendous. And I'd say the most well-mannered, respectful child ever taught had every excuse to be an absolute delinquent, and he was the most well-mannered, thoughtful, open the door for you, thanks for the lesson, sir. And every social indicator said that child should have been an absolute nightmare, and of other children who have come from professional households, doctors, lawyers, teachers, dentists themselves, and they have been utter nightmares because the sense of entitlement and the sense of, and they have no excuse whatsoever because, and again, they've got every cultural capital going. So sometimes there is no rhyme nor reason, and some parents, God bless them, are doing everything right. And despite all of that, their child is just an absolute nightmare. And I do feel for those parents. But the pattern, I would say, the correlation is, there is a strong correlation, we would say.
Strong correlation, I think,
between how you're raised and obviously behavior. But there are variations of that 95% confidence level. And we've all known outliers. We are going, how has this child ended up like this despite all the advantages in life? I mean, I give you the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, you know what I mean? Or, the wealthiest man, one of the wealthiest men in the world, the President of the United States of America, has every privileged background, and yet look how he behaves.
Well, so it's almost like children are people, complex human beings. Who would have actually thought?
Sorry, but I thought that, to defend some parents, just to defend some parents, because, they're thinking, going, it's not always like that. Sorry.
Not always. Then we got Sarah saying that exclusion rates increase in spring because schools are upping the ante to get rid of children for the next academic year. It's also budget time, so it can be financially motivated. This is the perfect example of the cynicism towards schools. Not to deny that this ever happens, but this is not the driving factor. You could just as easily say kids have been acting up since September, and spring is the time that things have finally reached tipping point. The novelty of the school year has worn off and true colors are showing. There are so many other reasons other than the cynical view that schools are entirely financially motivated and trying to get rid of children.
Also, the spring rise we're looking at is year on year, not from autumn to spring. As a general pattern, autumn terms are very often the worst, not spring terms. There are questions of why the summer term is so much lower, but then in secondary schools, there's fewer pupils there. Yeah. I think there may be a case that sometimes when people have struggled to the end of the line, no one wants to kick them out with weeks to go. I think there's also similar patterns there in primary, that year 5 usually have more exclusions than year 6. And, the only real explanation you can come up with is if they've got to year 6 and they've got through their SATs, what is even the point of permanently excluding them? Then there's going to be someone else's problem soon. So I think you can look at the data and be cynical about what schools are doing and whether they're doing, whether it's best for the child or best for the school. And there are schools that have done things very wrong in this area. But it's not as simple as it goes up in spring because there's incentives in spring.